Hello, my name is Ali Al-Jabari, and I will be going over the Iron Age. I'm going to be talking about the beginning. Anthony's going to tell us about how it led into the Age of Sail. Brianna's going to go over the Industrial Revolution, and then Justin is going to tell us about the early 20th century. So, the beginning of the Iron Age all started around 1000 BC when the Bronze Age collapsed. And all those civilizations that had those trade routes, sending tin to other areas, all of those were gone. So we needed something new. And that's when we started looking at, that's when metallurgists started looking into iron as another resource. And it was very valuable because it was easy to come by, and it was, they were able to make steel out of it, which is stronger than bronze. So all of that combined, right? Let's talk about war, because that's what that's all about. Can we? How many people know about war here? Yep. Okay. So I think we can all agree, right, that war sucks, right? And back in the day, before we had these modern, sophisticated killing machines called guns, it was way worse, right? People just threw rocks at each other and beat each other with sticks. And then iron came in and kind of changed all that, because there was so much iron. We made lots of weapons, more weapons than we knew what to do with. We really picked up people. We started conscriptions and citizen service, which means like drafts. Like the country would pick up people like Anthony, and be like, "Yo, here's the sword. Go swing it at those people over there. Maybe you'll get one of them." Right? And this was an era of war, and warriors, weapons, all of that became a regular part of human existence. And it's all like normal to us now, right? And so that started this military revolution, and with the introduction of gunpowder really also made that huge, because we have crossbows and stuff, but now there's this devastating weapon that blew up, and we hadn't seen that before, right? And as time went on, people, they got bored, and they ran out of land to conquer, so they put people on ships with these weapons and told them to find other places, and that's what Anthony's going to tell us about.
So the magnetic compass was introduced into Europe in the 1400s. First, it was created in China around 200 to 300 BC. The origins are unknown. But basically, the magnetic compass, before it, people didn't know where to travel. They didn't want to go very far from where they lived because they didn't know if they could get back or not. So after the magnetic compass came to be, then they were able to actually be able to travel further, map out areas better, and basically not be as afraid to go travel. And they would basically open new ways of opening new trade routes, and they could get better goods and stuff. The traverse board was created in the 1500s. It basically was used to record the speed of a ship and the direction that it was sailing. Before this, there was actually no precise way of recording that. And after it came out, it made it so they could open new trade routes and just map out areas better. And this is the Gerardus Mercator. He created the Mercator projection, which is basically the map. Basically a map, the globe. Okay. The globe all on one map, and it's made off of longitude and latitude. So before this map actually came to be, people had to rely on unreliable maps. And so basically they would run into shallow areas, shallow waters, and have the risk of being robbed or even killed. And this is Christian Huygens, the creator of the pendulum clock. The pendulum clock is ran off of swinging weight, and it was the most precise clock of its time. And so basically, it made it so people all were on the same page at the same times, because before this creation, people ran off sundials and water clocks. And so basically, when this came out, civilization actually all had the same time, and they could all run off at the same exact time. And because of all these technological innovations in time and navigation, it made it so we could create new ways of transportation.
Hello, I'll be covering the Industrial Revolution, which happened between 1760 to 1840. And the technical revolution, there is a lot of advances that actually influence a lot of our innovation today. A few things that came out of Industrial Revolution was a few technical things like steam engine and the use of using new materials such as iron and steel. Also using the steam engine, petroleum, electricity, and coal at the time. And this is when the first steam engine was invented by James Watt, right here, which definitely influenced transportation because they used this steam engine to put in a lot of things. Before they used to for factories to run, they would have to rely on wind, man, water, and horse sometimes, but with steam engine, you could rely on, boiling water and whatnot. Before, you would have to rely on sometimes the river or whatever the source that you're used by the factories. Sometimes the river would freeze up or dry up. So having that steam engine really influenced a lot. And then now we use this technology and move into steamboats. Before, as Anthony mentioned, we used to rely on sail ships that rely on wind and the current. And now we have an engine where it could go against the current and the wind and go pretty much anywhere. This was created in 1787 by John Fitch. The first ever steamboat, which helped the trading routes. And then they also used this steam engine in trains. And then also with trains, with trains right here, that was invented in 1869, everyone was able to travel to different towns, and now you can go back to fossil fuels. So before, along with steam, they had to go into other new sources such as coal. And with coal, this was a new fossil fuel, and they would use coal in their factories. However, they realized later on, this would create a lot of health problems. And it would just destroy the skyline because of all this air pollution. So they realized with running out of resources between transferring from using wood for everything, because they had to use wood to build things, cook, heat, and everything, that transferring to steam, it kind of helped, but they wanted to evolve. And now with coal, it helped them evolve, but not really. So they had to find a balance between using steam and coal because the dangers of using fossil fuels such as the coal factories. So they eventually switched to using all steam, and that helped with new innovations that Justin will.
So I'm going to be covering some of the technological innovations moving towards the 20th century. So starting back at the late 1800s, there were no flying machines that we know today as planes, but there was someone who came close. His name was Clement Ader, and he was born in France. And in 1886, he created this flying machine that had a bat-like design and was powered by a steam engine. And he was the very first person to create the first powered takeoff. And he was able to take off into the air about 160 feet into the air, but he wasn't actually able to achieve flight. So it wasn't until the early 1900s, in 1903, when in, I believe it was North Carolina, the Wright brothers, they created the first powered flight. They created this revolutionary idea of the three-axis control, which allowed for pilots to control the plane and keep the equilibrium of the plane. And this became a standard for the plane for the fixed wing design. And eventually planes were used in the First World War. They were mainly used for recon and scouting, and this changed how people gathered information during the time. Because mainly people gathered information on ground and on the boats, but they would gather information through the ground and boat, and with the introduction of planes, this allowed for people to gather information a lot faster and from a different view. And by World War II, there have been many technological innovations made towards the plane, and over time, these technological innovations made many improvements to their engines and weaponry. Specifically for their engines, they made improvements and created new engines such as the piston engine, the gas turbines, and the jet engine. And this allowed for planes to be a lot bigger, fly a lot faster, and carry a lot more people. They're also able to equip planes with weaponry which allowed for air-to-air combat, as well as equipping them with bombs which allowed for air-to-ground combat. And with this wide use of planes, it allowed for a new element to be added to the battle. Because normally battles were fought on land and on the water, but now they were fought in the air. And this would change how wars would be fought to the years to come. And moving on to the 1950s through 60s, there was the first commercially used jet airliner. And this really changed how people traveled because it allowed for people to travel very long distances in a very short amount of time. Comparing this to the early 1900s, people were still traveling by train, horse, and eventually cars.
So, as you can tell, there's a lot of innovations in the Iron Age that still have impacts today. You guys have